Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the RomaPress podcast. We hope you are doing well. Very quickly, a thank you to our newest patron over at Patreon, Nick Maiden. And of course, thank you to all of our other wonderful patrons who make this possible. If you would like to join the group chat, which was, of course, obviously very upbeat today, as Roma defeat Cagliari, you can go to patreon.com/RomaPress. And also, if you enjoy or have enjoyed, well, I don't know, some have enjoyed. Although somebody on Twitter said they thought that in their head they worked up of what I looked like, and it was a skinnier version. They said Batistuta, I believe.
I was told they imagined that I looked like Ben Kingsley, that I was some 50-year-old man, balding man,
I was about to
short
say there's a
guy.
lot you could take from that. The accent, the baldness. He hasn't had a hair follicle since the 50s, it seems like.
Yes, it seems like, so I don't know. I mean, what kind of version of Ben Kingsley, I wonder, because
Yeah,
there's the one from Gandhi, there's one from Schindler's List, and then there is one from Sexy Beast. And if people
mm,
haven't seen Sexy Beast, that is Ben Kingsley being the most terrifying villain in movie history. So I hope that at least people did not associate me with that version of the English thespian, because
yeah,
he's
no,
so
I
handsome.
listen. I understand. I look like I'm 12. I can understand those expectations. But when I saw that tweet, somebody said, in my
Yeah,
head, I envisioned
that's
Solano
right.
looked like a skinnier version of Batistuta. I mean,
I don't see any
I don't know where that came
resemblance.
from or what
No.
afforded me that sort of benefit of the doubt. I almost feel obligated to apologize for that because wow. But still, I am somewhat flattered. At least my voice exudes that vision of a skinnier version of Batistuta. YouTube.com/at IS Roma Press, where you can watch us be in a somewhat jovial mood today. I am coming off of this. I was supposed to do a 15 before we recorded. I got booked by a very, very small radio station um, in Sardinia, and very, very, very small, very small. Only reason I was doing it was I have a friend who works there. I was going to appear after the match and give my analysis. Um, they they said they had something come up for the post match, but that was their way of letting me go prematurely because I think they were upset with my joke, or not even a joke. If you have been and visited Sardinia, okay, probably the natural beauty, right? Andy is like the thing. If you go to Sardinia, the beaches, the sea.
Yes. I mean, there's a
It,
reason why Berlusconi had his favorite whorehouses there. So
all right. Well, I wasn't going to
I'm not
mention
supposed to say.
the brothels, but they also have it's very well known for mines, sea mines, and it was an obvious joke. I said I think Jose Mourinho and Roma might have just kicked the tenure of Claudio Ranieri into the bottom of the mine at Porto Flavia, which is one of the more well-known ones. Um, they must have took exception to that because they only allowed me on for 7 minutes. And then they said, "Oh, we have something come up. We have to let you go." So
Well, I
I
mean,
apologize. My apologies for that. I thought it was an obvious joke, but apparently not. But it is true, though. I mean, Roma. I, I have to admit. I mean, I was looking at a spot in the mine of Porto Flavia for myself as to where my corpse could lie for the rest of eternity, because this had all the hallmark looks and appearance of the typical, purge match. Shomurodov was on the cards, obviously, Ranieri, but that never came into fruition. And Andy, to be quite honest, there was never a point in that match where Cagliari looked even to be on the same, forget level. Just it was as if they were playing two different sports. I mean, Roma, they were dominant. They were extremely well balanced. I thought Cristante was phenomenal at the back tonight, and it was the exact opposite of what we saw in Liguria against Genoa. They were right from the start. They showed, I thought, incredible effort, incredible determination. And what happens less than 20 minutes into the match, back to back, Aouar, Lukaku, and from there, it's I mean game over before even half an hour. I mean you cannot ask for more than that. I mean that was thorough, that was balanced, that was dominating. I mean the only negative tonight is Paulo Dybala. Yeah.
It's yeah, it's Paulo Dybala walking out before halftime, which is never a good sign with him. We've said it. This is a guy who is so uh, he knows his body so well that he's terrified of even
Mm,
the smallest incident. And I don't know. I mean, I take it as a bad sign that he walks out. Or rather, I don't even know how to take it because he got called up by Argentina, and we all know how much he cares about Argentina.
right,
And he
right.
missed the last international break, so I don't know if this was some kind of precaution on his part, and maybe the staff and Mourinho, like they did a year ago for the World Cup, they tried to preserve him for the Argentina side, but it's that was for me it's the only negative that we can talk in a night that really saw Roma soar back to that kind of level of enthusiasm that was built up in that 7-0 beating of Empoli. Obviously, you know, it's the scoreline says it all, with the exception of the penalty near the final minutes. It was all going Roma's way, and also it was a pleasant evening because for me, you know, it's always nice. Houssem Aouar gets a goal, Belotti gets a goal, and then
Yes.
Romelu Lukaku scores a brace. Um, yeah, Lukaku right now is only behind Batistuta in terms of players who have had a better start in their first, I believe, 6 appearances in the league for the club. So uh, I think he's now won what 7 goals in 6 games in
Eight.
6 appearances. Seven
I
goals
think it's
in
eight. It's eight appearances altogether if you take Europa League.
no,
And
I'm
really,
not
if it,
saying no. I'm saying Serie A. I'm saying
oh,
Serie A.
it's Serie A, then yeah,
Seven,
it's
seven
six,
goals in
7 and 6.
six games.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I mean the difference. I will be quite frank. I don't know whether to enjoy because just being a naturally jaded person, natural pessimist. I love every second of this, but the thought of him leaving after this season, after the start, it terrifies me. We can get to him in a moment. We clearly, though, every before every single match that we are worried about or coming off a poor spell, clearly we have to complain of the lack of assist of the wing backs, because you and I were on here 2 to 3 days ago complaining about Zalewski, complaining about well, we weren't complaining about Zeki Sarik, but he was coming off. He had gotten assists in the match, but he was coming
Yeah,
off a. I mean,
those were facts. So it's you know
right? Yeah.
we were finally, maybe Roma, I don't know, maybe Mourinho tuned us in, maybe we were playing on loudspeaker in the dressing room, you know, at
Well, we
Trigoria,
know.
and maybe
Well,
that's somebody who thought, okay, this guy looks like Ben Kingsley and this guy looks like Gabriel Batistuta, and they, you know, we have secret admirers at Trigoria. But thank God that
well,
somebody
we know one. Hold on, I have to interject because a few weeks ago, someone. I don't see why this would be an issue to say. It is kind of funny. I won't say who. Uh, Someone from Roma. They took issue with one of the articles that we put out. It was
yes,
just
yes, it was
a
my
slight.
mistake,
I
my
mean,
mistake.
no. It wasn't your mistake. It was a mistake of all of the others who put
Yeah,
it in
well,
there as
but
well. And
we made we yeah, it was a headline
we
that
misheard it just like everybody else. It wasn't a mistake. It was the feed that we were all using. It wasn't a mistake at all. But this certain executive at Roma contacted one of the
Immediately, like
media, yeah, someone from
the
the media
moment it
team.
popped up.
I mean, within 2 minutes, it was fantastic. And then
You
that
got
person,
contacted by
yeah,
Roma.
it's not a problem. I
No, I know, but
again,
it's so we are
they
being,
do watch.
we're
They
being
do watch,
dressed.
and I will say that. I mean, you could talk with the media team of Roma during the days of Peralta, and that wasn't an issue. But I like how they are proactive now. The exact opposite. So, for better or for worse, I mean, we know they are watching, and it's kind of like Big Brother. Be careful, we are watching you. In a way, okay, fine, I can live with that. But it is funny. So we do know, at least in part, at least one very high executive at Roma is watching and reacting in very quick time. I mean, after 22 kids, I don't know if I've gotten any reaction so quickly in my life from anyone. But yeah, it is. It has been interesting. But seriously, the thing with Spinazzola, Karsdorp, what we saw from Karsdorp on the right, and this is no, I'm not meaning this as a shot at Christensen or even Zeki Salik. I just think what you saw in that action on the goal of Lukaku, I don't know if the others would have been capable of that. And that is what he does. That is what he brings. And that is him. That is him. When he is at his best, I think he is very, 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 very good. And Spinazzola, too, on the goal of Aouar. I mean, whenever I don't have, as we know, our research department on the weekends they take days off, so I couldn't even venture to guess when the last match of Roma was when both the right and the left back had an assist. I will leave that to
I
you.
would I would
I
have
don't
to
know.
assume, in maybe in Mourinho's first year, I would assume
Mm.
that maybe then, but otherwise, I would have to guess something along the lines of when Kolarov was still here. So
Oof, that's a good call.
Kolarov
Yeah.
was with us until I think 2019 or something like that, 2020 maybe. So yeah, about what, 3 years? So no,
I would be
but it's
surprised if it was that short. I mean, I honestly can't recall. And I have a very odd memory where I
I
can
really I
think of
think,
obscure
well, it
things
has
like
to,
that, but I
maybe it
can't.
has to be either when Kolarov was there, maybe we had a somewhat, I don't know, decent version of Florenzi. I don't want to say
Oof.
it will sound stupid. So
I
but
couldn't recall, but it's been a
but
while
it shows
nonetheless.
you,
The point stands.
it shows you, like that's why I'm so mad when we don't see these things, is because
Mm,
it's possible. It's not impossible. It is possible. They can do it if you set them up right, and if the players actually embrace the system that has been utilized for so long over these last few years, and actually they can make a difference. That's the point, is everybody in this team can make a difference. You're not a Cagliari side that has to fight for relegation. Obviously, we're in a tough position in the standings still, despite these nice three results that we've gotten both in Serie A and the Europa League. And it's nice to end it on a positive note going into the international break. But
yes.
the conclusion has to be, you're not crap. You're not crap. It's not that cannot be the consensus that everybody sort of, tries to uh, pass as common knowledge, as something that everybody believes in. Oh yeah, well, Roma are Roma. They're not good enough. Well, no. Even okay, it's Cagliari's Cagliari, same way as Frosinone is Frosinone, and Servette is Servette. But there are there are things that you want to pick up on. Exactly, the wing backs that actually do their job. Belotti, who comes in as a substitute and once again has an impact, positive impact on the team. Paredes, who's doing nicely. Aouar, who comes back out from this weird transition period between injury and
Yes.
bench time, and also makes an impact. Sort of, it's not, this is not Night of the Living Dead. This team is alive, but that's why it's so puzzling when they show nothing, because
Yes.
there is something there. I'm not saying we are, Ancelotti's Real Madrid, or Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. But this is definitely a team that can fight for what its initial objectives were. The bad start to the season, for me, it's inexplicable. It's something that, I don't know, has to be from carried over fatigue from last season. I don't know, because then when you see them flowing the way they did tonight, the way they did against Empoli, it's so, oh man, they trick you. They trick you into believing, they
They
trick
do,
you
yeah.
into believing two scenarios. When they win, is that they trick you into believing that they're a great team. And when they lose, they trick you into believing that they're a crap relegation side. Whereas the truth is that it's somewhere in the middle, as always. As always with Roma, it's somewhere in the middle.
Well, the mind blowing thing to me too is if you take the team that was out there today and you compare it to the one that was on the pitch in Liguria, it's mind blowing to me. There's one, two differences. Obviously, no Pellegrini. You have Cristante at the back. No Diego Llorente. For the most part, we are looking at the same cast of players. And what has to both, I guess, in a way, make you feel somewhat good, but also in a way piss you off too. It's like if they'd have shown half of this effort in Genova, I mean, they they win. Because that match had nothing to do again with technical ability. It had nothing to do with just even bad luck. It was just effort. It was pure and simple effort. And I look at the first half an hour, the way they played today. It's just mind blowing to me the way they conducted themselves. It's night and day compared to what we saw in Liguria, and it's confusing. It's frustrating, and it just adds to the mystery surrounding this team because when they play as they were tonight, they are very good. And no, you somewhat alluded to it. Nobody is expecting them to be Real Madrid, City. We are expecting them to be among the contenders to play for a place among the top four. And there's no doubting. I mean, in the early goal of this season, they have been very underwhelming. I don't know. Let's say if we take you have Lukaku arrive, and this is something Jose Mourinho alluded to when he was saying that. Well, the transfer market really played a large psychological role on some of the players within the team, and I am not doubting that. You can't deny that. But every team has to deal with that. That's not exclusive to Roma, whether it's an incoming operation or an outgoing operation. Every team has to deal with it. So I don't know if I necessarily like that as he wasn't using it as an alibi, but just something to consider. I do wonder if you have Lukaku, for instance, against Salernitana, does that change things against Verona? I don't know. That gets me somewhat bitter, but Roma should have taken care of those games with or without him. There's no doubt in my mind that they just completely bottled those matches. But for you, I mean, this up and down, hot and cold, you just said the truth is somewhere in the middle, and I would agree. But the thing that, again, I just get confused by is it would be one thing if Roma had a very glaring weakness in some department, but they don't. And it would be one thing if they had a large list of injuries that they could use as an excuse, as an alibi. They're missing a few guys, but again, given the depth that they acquired over the summer, they have more than enough to be able to handle the likes of Genoa, Verona, Salernitana. So I can't use that as an alibi either. For you, I mean, I just don't know what to make of this team. I really, really don't. Because, I mean, they bounced back against Frosinone. They win in the Europa League. They roll tonight. And I'm happy, obviously, they win. But then I'm also somewhat pissed off because it's like, man, it took you what 3 or 4 matches wasted to kind of get to this point where you feel the need to give effort at this level. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, obviously, I'm happy. Roma 3 points tonight, but still, in a way, I am pissed off because it's the same cast of guys that was out there against Genoa. What happened? And it's
How
just
many times have we said it? How many times over the years, seeing Roma do these up and down performances and going from
right,
exactly total excitement to total utter depression. Uh, Too many times. And here, I think there is definitely some truth to the issue of fatigue. There's definitely some truth to the issue of guys not being on the same page, and those are normal things that every team has to face. It's just
right.
you have to contain those things and uh, limit them as quickly as possible. It is about finding the answers to the issues that really bug you. So, for example, this Cristante situation with him playing as a center back seems to be at the moment a kind of blessing in disguise. The
Mm.
fact that you take your most effective midfielder and you have to plug him into the defense. Normally, that would be blasphemous, quoting the great Stephen A. Smith, but in this case, it is not. It is actually, it seems to be a lifesaver, a stabilizer, something that gives you the balance that you needed, uh, and that was lacking, that was missing in the first few weeks of the season. With him, it seems to be working differently. There is a different
Yes.
sense of composure, and there is a better link between the defense and the midfield. So I don't know what to make of it either, because that should not be the case, but but it is you make an unconventional move, and by doing so you solve a problem. And I think it's all with Roma, especially, and a team that has to fight for top four and sees all the other teams cruise by. It's all about reacting efficiently, and not sticking to ideas and plans that don't work. That's why I was saying, if the 3-5-2 doesn't work, if the wingbacks are not producing, change something. Now that the wingbacks are producing, stick to it, change something else. As we are recording, Mourinho's saying that he's worried about Dybala. When Mourinho says
Dybala,
he's
right.
worried about Dybala, it means that Dybala is looking at, I don't know, a month and a half,
At
maybe two.
minimum, yeah.
If he
Yeah.
says I'm concerned because Dybala is concerned, then, well, you'll
He's
have to
not
come up.
optimistic is my wife's, "We need to talk."
Yes, exactly. It means you have to
Not
figure
good.
something out fast, and not linger on the problem. Because it's classic. Then we can always have that excuse ready. Oh well, Dybala is not there, right? No, I want this team after the international break. They have to keep on rolling the momentum, the same intensity that we saw tonight, that we saw against Servette, that we saw to a lesser degree against Frosinone. It has to be there, and there has to be exactly that mentality that we saw in the Europa League of, okay, we don't have this guy, we don't have that guy, we're going to have to come up with this combination, we are going to have Lukaku play with Belotti, something. It's because the season is long, everybody's going to have issues. So if you base your whole season on the idea of having Lorenzo Pellegrini and Paulo Dybala available at all times, two guys that have an injury history that is longer than the list of names of your children, then we have a problem. We have a problem. If that is the plan A, then we got a problem. We have to have a vast number of plans available, because this team otherwise will get stuck, and then they will point to, oh well, we don't have Dybala. And it's now in this league, especially with Serie A, with how it is shaping up to be, with all the other teams clustered up there, uh, nobody has time for excuses. So uh, tonight was very encouraging. It was very encouraging because it really it reaffirmed some of the performers. It reaffirmed, for example, Leandro Paredes, in my eyes, of a guy who slowly but surely, is trying to fulfill the expectations that were set upon him. It gave the chance for Houssem Aouar to get back in. It gave once again the chance to Belotti to reaffirm his place in the team and show that, okay, I'm here, I'm an option, and I'm not the guy from last season. And it's all about that. Those are the answers. Those are the options on the table. and you have them. So this is, for me, it's always great when you can have a night like this ahead of an international break, because mm, it really emphasizes all of the things that you need to pay attention to.
Right.
Meaning, this is what we have at our disposal, and it's not the Genoa match should be always the exception to the rule. The Genoa match should
Mm,
emphasize the worst things about this team. This team is complacent. This team can just drop energy levels down to a zero. This team can play without ideas. This team can be lifeless. But then you have a Cagliari match like this, where you go into the opponent's stadium, difficult place that you've always had trouble dealing with, and you do what you did tonight, and that shows you that you're capable of these things, and that you can go on. You must go on. You must go on after this international break. A lot of teams will react differently, as they always do after an international break. There are those that lose their momentum. There are those that are off to a hot start, and there are those that are very slow, and or nothing changes, or maybe things go into the dumper. With Roma, I really hope that it's going to be all about making this team more well-rounded. So far, we are very, some things work, and when they work perfectly, and when some things don't work, they work horrendously, like the defense. Right at the
right.
start of the season, the defense works awful. It looks awful. It's bad, it's bad, it's bad, and when it's bad, and you know it. But then you have the attack, and everybody's free flowing, and all of a sudden you got what you got. You scored, I believe, 25 goals in the opening 9 games of the season, across all competition. 25 goals. I
Right.
think last season we had maybe 12 or 13 at this point. So you double the number of goals scored last year. So everything is beautiful in the attack. Now it all has to come back full circle. The defense is improving, but this is a matter that has to be addressed in the international break.
I will say, though, if we were to hear Jose Mourinho say these words on Paulo Dybala last season compared to this season, I think if there ever was a time, obviously, he would prefer Paulo Dybala to be not injured, fully available at all times. If there ever was a moment where you feel like, okay, international break, let's allow him to rest, and on top of that too, you have Romelu Lukaku and a Belotti in incredible form. Last season, you had Belotti, who was, for all intents and purposes, a black hole of a player, whether it be injury. We mentioned it before, and you bring it up a lot, but I do think it bears repeating. He did not have a preseason with Roma. They had an agreement in place for months, but but they couldn't sign him. So the guy is just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. So he lost an entire summer not being able to do a preseason last season with Roma. Um, uh, Frankly, it couldn't have gone worse than last year for Belotti. I mean, the expectation coming into this season after how year one went for him, it was okay. Well, it can't be worse, right? And he brings just such a different dynamic to this team. And I know I've said this on multiple occasions, and I will say it again. I mean, the work rate that he brings, I just think it gets overshadowed a bit too much. Even last season when he wasn't scoring goals, I mean, he never allows lack of goals, whether or not it is a big match, to to take effect on the effort that he gives. I mean, he is always a guy that is willing to give an incredible amount of effort and work rate, regardless of the circumstances of a match. I mean, if there ever was, right, the moment where you feel, okay, it sucks to lose Paulo Dybala, but at least now you can tolerate it. Last season, you could not tolerate it. You could not tolerate the loss of him. You could not tolerate the loss of, I would even say, Pellegrini at times. You had no alternative to him at all, even in defense. Even in defense, if you lose Smalling, it's done. It's done. It's finished. You have nobody. So that is where I think a match like tonight, the depth is really the thing that stands out to me, because last season, even 2 seasons ago, in the first year of Jose Mourinho, and before that with Paulo Fonseca, you had one, maybe two reliable names from the bench that you could say to yourself, okay, they are at an acceptable level. Not this season, though. I mean, you have plenty of alternatives. You have guys that have no problem with sort of embracing this uncertainty. We don't know who is going to start at the right wing back from match to match. I couldn't tell you. I could not tell. I thought all of the papers, all of the bigger papers today, they had Christensen starting. We don't know that. Spinazzola seems to be obviously far ahead of Zalewski. So
No, but in some newspapers it said Al Sharawi was going to start ahead
right,
of.
exactly, and that's the thing that really stands out to me this season. And by the way, Jose Mourinho also deserves credit for that, because who did we see start tonight? Bove. I don't know if Jose Mourinho is not here, if we even know what sort of quantity we have in Bove. So he deserves credit for that too.
No,
Um,
Bove is in Serie C. Bove is
yeah, right, right,
he gets promoted to Serie B, but Bove would follow in Marco
yeah,
Tuminello's path. I mean, that's
right, yeah.
you don't hear of
He's
Bove
playing for
without Mourinho.
Perugia right now. He's playing at some obscure Serie B side.
Vicenza.
Serie, okay, relax. So I'm in a good mood. You're trying to piss me off already. Um, the thing, though, that just sort of, I guess, stands out to me the most is, and you brought it up. You said the guy's name is Paredes, and there's no need for me to regurgitate my thoughts on the guy. What I said for the last 10 years, my thoughts on him are very well documented. Um, but what I have seen, and you kind of touched upon it just ever so slightly, they seem to go as he goes in these matches. Like if you watch him, yeah, we were talking after Janova. I mean, he looked lost in that match. He looked like he could not have done anything correctly. I mean, he looked so out of place. He didn't look like he even knew what sport he was playing or what day it was. I mean, he looked so lost. Today he was fantastic. Europa League, fantastic. I mean, it is obviously more than one guy has an effect as to whether or not Roma win the match or not. But what I am saying is he seems to be sort of like the metaphor or the representation of Roma so far this season. I mean, it is so funny to me because you brought him up just now, and it sort of just hit me. I mean, in the matches where Roma are very, 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 very poor, playing terribly, doing nothing correct, he seems to be the ones that stands out the most as not doing well. But when they do good, like tonight, I mean, you see such a different, a different, uh, just look to him. I mean, he looks more confident. He looks more assured of himself. It's just astonishing to me that, at least in the early go, again, I am not saying it is strictly down to him, but what I am saying is when Roma are bad or when they are good, he seems to be the one that you can point to, and I can just say whether or not the match went well or not. I think that's the thing I've been saying for years now about him is it's the consistency with him. But when he is good, like he was tonight, man, he is fantastic, very strong. So I don't know. He's still one of those guys that I
It's
just
one of
don't
those guys.
I don't know
Yeah,
what to make of him.
he's one of those guys, and Roma are full of these guys. They are full of
Yes,
players that
correct.
they trick you, just like the whole team. That's why the whole team is can be exciting and frustrating at the same point, because it's you are watching players seemingly trying to figure things out from game to game, but then they have these games where it's like they take you by surprise and they show you all these things and you're like, wow, you knew how to do that. Zeki Salik, you had 2 assists in one match. Wow, that is
Right,
amazing. I didn't know that. And the thing about it is that most of the time they are just surprised as we are. So that's why when things are going well and when you have nights like these, you see the whole team really just, it pops with energy. It really pops. But then when things go bad, the whole team sinks. That's why when we watched that Genoa game, we were completely distraught. We were completely overwhelmed by the helplessness that this team demonstrated on the pitch. It seemed almost unreal. But that's Roma. That's what they do. They take it from one extreme to the other. It's and just like we supporters react one way or another, the team also lives and breathes from 0 to 100 on that pitch.
Yes.
And so they have games where they're just non-existent, they look dead, and then they have games where it's almost inspiring to watch them play. And you're like, they can do that as a team. It's amazing. These
Yeah.
performances really from Roma, wow. And that's why going into an international break is always good to end it on a positive note, because then you can watch back and Roma now have a good sample of what their season could look like if they don't do something about it. Because it's one thing to, to have, okay, this nice stretch, but then you have to take into consideration everything that took place beforehand, and you can't go on like this. Roma's season
Right.
cannot be an extension of these opening few weeks. It cannot, because then you end up at the end of the season with too few points and with just this up and down uh, track record that is not good enough for anything, not for Champions League
Right.
football, not for winning the Europa League, not for even Coppa Italia. That's what a team like Udinese does. It's this. And Roma, if they aspire to Champions League football, they have to build consistency. Always, it's about consistency. I watch a lot of the British chef Marco Pierre White. I love his voice. That now he's become this elderly, almost guru. He's now just this big loving dude, and he always says that it's all about consistency, not only in the kitchen, in life as well. So in football as well, it's all about consistency. The teams that win, they win because they build consistency. Why did Juve dominate? Okay, no, that's a bad example, the refs. Why did
Oh,
the Patriots
oh
dominate?
man,
No, again, that's a bad example because the
you
refs.
were opening
Why
that
did
one up
Golden
for fun.
State? Why did Golden State? Or why? Okay, you being a Cavs fan, I'll make it family friendly.
Don't
Why
bring up
has
J.R. Smith again. We have
why
children
no no
listening, man.
why has LeBron been so great for so long? Because he's consistent about his work, he's consistent in his performances, he's consistent in being the best athlete in the world, or one of, if not the best. And so the same thing has to apply to a football team that, like Roma, aspires to something they haven't achieved in a long time. And the secret to that is always the same. It's consistency. So an international break comes along, you can watch film, you can come up with plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. You can work with guys that haven't got enough minutes and haven't been called up by their respective national teams. So there are positives in this period of time where we will hear plenty of weird stories about managers, about players being linked to us and
Yes.
whatever. But tonight, what matters is that once again, it's evidence that this team is capable of rising above the shit show that they've granted us on a number of occasions so far this season.
Well, speaking of shit show, to end this, I wanted to address this in a more, I guess, extensive manner, but perhaps we can save the deeper conversation for the international break. You put out the article on the website from Gianluca De Marzio, who, listen, there, if you're not in the country, and you don't even have to be that well connected to like football media, but there, it's hard to explain sort of like the politics, maybe is the right word, behind when certain things are published, what is said, when it is said. And uh, for him to drop that story, what was it, 3 4 hours before kickoff, where he writes what he said after Genoa, Roma were
Yeah,
seriously
basically, yeah,
considering.
he basically comes on to Sky Sport to confirm the story that was released by Corriere dello Sport yesterday morning.
Which and they too, it was written by the always the man who never misses, Ivan Zazzaroni, who I could go on for hours about. I
No,
do
but
not
he's their
like
he's
him.
their editor.
Right.
He's the it's basically like the director of the newspaper who writes the main story and becomes the biggest headline of the day.
You wouldn't know this if you're not, again, like, deep into the weeds of this whole thing. But he does not have a good relationship with the club. Just it's been that way for years. I would say Corriere dello Sport in general doesn't have a great relationship with Roma. I myself do not. Most of the people at that newspaper, I do not get on well with. During the entire saga with Friedkin negotiating with Peralta, myself, Filippo Biafora, we were writing about there were meetings in New York, and they happened. They happened in February of 2020. Corriere dello Sport, they write this very long article. This guy, this midget, I'll keep it to myself, being almost 2 meters tall. I resent when somebody, barely a meter tall, goes into one of the biggest newspaper outlets in all of the country and writes, "We made this up, that there was never a meeting." They called it a phantom meeting. Um, they steal, a number of interviews. I have it somewhere on Twitter where they will literally just go onto RomaPress.net and they will copy and, well, many of them don't speak English, so I won't say they will just copy and paste it. But you understand, they will do so without attribution. They have done it so many times. I keep a running list on my Twitter every time one of the major newspapers just steals something from us. Just no credit, no nothing. So I can't stand that. But Andy, I have to tell you, for him to for Gianluca Di Marzio to drop that story, okay, at that time, I can't help but feel there was some sort of agenda behind it, some sort of bitterness. I don't know what it would be, because Roma have been, I mean, been profound in their denials that, yeah, that was never the case. That never happened. Now, again, I've said what a club says publicly, you always have to take with a grain of salt, but for the most part, the Roma of the Friedkins has been very forthcoming. To me, at least, they've been very proactive and they have been very straightforward. So until I have reason to believe otherwise, I'm going to believe them when they say this was never the case. But maybe this shouldn't be the case, but it bothered me, the timing of it all. It really, really bothered me because it seemed like one of those stories that, uh, you know, uh, you could have dumped that 2 days from now. You could have dumped that during the international break
Yeah,
to
yeah,
help your outlet
it's a
get.
clear mood killer.
Yes,
It's one of those
yes,
jobs.
yes.
It's a clear hit
Yeah,
job.
but what is the thing that the president of Fiorentina? What does he call it? You've brought it up. The
It's a
job of
job
the.
at the Bronx.
Yeah, that's
Okay. Eh,
that,
okay. Eh, it's a
that's
job at the Bronx.
that's what
Quoting the great Rocco Commisso for anybody who doesn't know by now, the
that
famous words of Rocco Commisso to an annoying journalist. That's your job at the Bronx.
That's exactly what it felt like because the timing of it was so suspect to me. And again, this is, I'm jaded in general. I'm always pessimistic, for things when it comes to the Italian media. I never give them the benefit of the doubt, at least the bigger outlets. I just, there's always a reason, an agenda, a motivation behind it. There's no way you believe that, right? Because for me, even though Roma said and were profound when I asked it to them, they said, no, 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 0%. I just, even if they didn't tell that to me, I just couldn't believe that in any way, shape, or form, right? I assume you are the same.
I mean, these are, it's always, there's always these moments where you're confronted with the Italian media landscape that really chooses these moments wonderfully. So honestly, I mean, and most of the time these news are built out of either a feeling or a belief. Like the feeling was obviously you lost against Genoa, and we even came on here and we were dead when this team lost 4-1
Yes.
against Genoa. It felt like somebody sucked the air out of the room. Like you were just like,
Mm.
what the hell did we just witness? So perhaps there is was even a reasonable notion to. And I remember when we came on here after Frosinone, and both of us were completely relieved. We were sitting there and we were like, oh my,
Yes.
oh, we won, thank God. And I said, because, well, I didn't want to imagine what would have happened if we lost against Frosinone.
Yes.
So there, and that doesn't mean that there has to be truth, but it's enough to spin a rumor, and then this rumor is it takes life of its own. So perhaps it could have been even reasonable to imagine that at that moment when Roma lose at the Marassi, completely humiliated, taken out of the match by Genoa kick their asses and completely dominate them. That maybe a thought in the back of the head of, say, Dan Freaking was, oh, do we have to do something? Like, is this team going to respond? Because that's the main issue. It's not even about 3 points here, 3 points there. I believe points matter, obviously. That's all that matters. But it's also about keeping a pulse on the team. Like, is this team, are they still breathing? Are they still following this guy? And that's why I said the Frosinone win was so important, because you
Yes.
had to, these players, after that performances against Genoa, which was so horrendous, they had to show me the opposite, which is, we will follow, we are still in it, we follow Mourinho. So far they haven't given me any notion that they may not be on board with Mourinho. And Mourinho himself, right now, he just said, he actually listed the players that were playing in the midfield tonight because of the scarcity of replacements due to injuries. And he said, we showed, despite playing with the midfield of Selic, Pagano, and Bove at the end, we still did great and showed great team spirit. So I have to thank them. I don't think those are words of a manager who has lost his handle on the locker room. I've seen those things happen in the past. So far, this is not the case. So it's always like that. It's always like that. And especially around Roma, you throw something at the wall, and most of the time it will stick, because there's people within the media landscape, the local media landscape, that will do anything for that thing to stick. So they'll take that
Yes.
story and they'll fill it up, they'll blow it out of proportion, and they'll
Always.
start naming
Yes.
names. And today you have an article from La Repubblica that basically said Roma are going into this Cagliari match with 5 names ready to go as potential replacements
Absurd.
for Jose Mourinho.
Absurd.
In case of a loss, they have Marcelo Gallardo ready, Igor Tudor, Hans Dimitar Flick. They even have Conte. All that baloney, baloney.
Yeah.
But it's there, and it's meant to embellish this wonderful narrative that has been built up by the Corriere dello Sport article. And now will probably die out a little. Maybe we'll hear something during the next 2 weeks.
It's the
But that was
international break, man. Come on. That's when the
that
volume gets
was
turned
but
up.
that's why it was so crucial to win tonight,
To
because
win.
at least you
Yes.
could complete,
Exactly.
to squash them to a certain degree. That's all you could have done, is win, and therefore you squash the rumors.
100%. I could not agree more. We will leave it there. We will return later in the week. Again, international break. So we will chew over a few things that happen in the aftermath. We will wait to see what happens with Paulo Dybala. Of course, our collective breath will be held that it is nothing too serious. But until then, ciao.